Black military general wrongfully arrested with one phone call destroyed their careers. What you're about to witness will shake you to your core and challenge everything you think you know about judging people by their appearance. A woman in worn jeans and a faded t-shirt sits handcuffed in the back of a police cruiser, her dignity stripped away as onlookers record her humiliation. The officers who arrested her are laughing, high-fiving each other, convinced they've just made the bust of their careers. But what they don't know, what they're about to discover in the most devastating way possible, is that this woman they've just degraded and criminalized is someone who could end their careers with a single phone call. Someone whose authority extends far beyond their small-town jurisdiction. Someone they should have treated with the respect every human being deserves. But to understand how we got here, how a routine traffic stop became a career-ending catastrophe for multiple police officers, we need to go back to where this story really begins. Before we dive into the story, tell us, what city are you watching from? Drop it in the comments. We love hearing from our global family. Don't forget to like and subscribe to keep this storytelling journey alive. Your support truly keeps us going. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy the story. General Patricia, Pat, Williams, though if you saw her that Tuesday morning, you'd never guess her true identity. At 52 years old, General Williams has dedicated her life to serving her country, rising through the ranks to become one of the highest-ranking African-American women in the U.S. Army. She's commanded thousands of troops, managed million-dollar operations, and earned the respect of soldiers and civilians alike across the globe. But here's what makes General Williams truly remarkable. Despite her incredible success, she's never forgotten where she came from. Born in a small Mississippi town to a single mother who worked 3 jobs just to keep food on the table, Pat learned early that hard work, dignity, and treating everyone with respect were the keys to success. This Tuesday morning, she's driving home from visiting her elderly mother in her hometown, the same town where she once walked to school with holes in her shoes. She's in her personal vehicle, a reliable but aging Honda Civic that's seen better days. She's wearing the same clothes she wore to help her mother with yard work, faded jeans, a simple t-shirt, and work boots. No uniform, no medals, no indication of the incredible authority she wields. You see, General Williams believes in staying connected to her roots. She could afford any car, any clothes, any lifestyle she wanted. But she chooses to live modestly, to remember where she came from, and to never let success change who she is at her core. Now let me introduce you to the officers whose lives are about to change forever. Sergeant Mike Rodriguez, a 15-year veteran of the Millbrook Police Department, and Officer Danny Walsh, just 3 years on the force but already showing the kind of attitude that gives good cops a bad name. Rodriguez prides himself on being a real cop, the kind who doesn't take any nonsense from anyone. But his definition of real policing often crosses the line into profiling and harassment. Walsh, eager to impress his senior partner, has learned to adopt the same prejudices, the same assumptions, the same dangerous habit of judging people by their appearance rather than their actions. These 2 men are about to make the biggest mistake of their careers. They're about to learn that respect isn't just good manners, it's essential for survival in their profession. It's 10:47 a.m. on Highway 82, just outside Millbrook, a small town that sits at the crossroads of old and new America. The morning sun is beginning to beat down on the asphalt as General Williams drives her Honda Civic at exactly the speed limit, her mind still on the wonderful morning she spent with her mother. She's thinking about the stories her mother told her, about the progress they both witnessed in their lifetimes, about how far they've come as a family and as a community. She has no idea that her peaceful drive is about to become a nightmare that will make national headlines. Behind her, Sergeant Rodriguez spots the Honda Civic and immediately feels that familiar itch, the one that tells him something's not right. To him, an older car with an out-of-state license plate driven by a black woman in this predominantly white area is automatically suspicious. He doesn't see a fellow American exercising her right to travel freely. He sees a potential problem. "Run that plate," he tells Walsh, already reaching for his lights. Something's off about this one. The plate comes back clean, of course. Registered to Patricia Williams, no warrants, no violations, nothing. But Rodriguez has already made up his mind. In his experience, people who don't belong in Millbrook are usually up to something. General Williams sees the flashing lights in her rearview mirror and feels her heart sink. As a black woman in America, she knows this moment could go many different ways. As a military officer, she knows the importance of following protocol and remaining calm. As a human being, she's tired of being seen as a threat simply because of the color of her skin. She pulls over safely, turns off her engine, and places her hands on the steering wheel in clear view. She's done this before. She knows the drill. What she doesn't know is that her calm, professional demeanor is about to be mistaken for something far more sinister. Sergeant Rodriguez approaches the driver's side with his hand resting on his weapon, a completely unnecessary intimidation tactic for what should be a routine traffic stop. Officer Walsh positions himself at the passenger side, blocking any potential escape route as if he's apprehending a dangerous fugitive rather than a middle-aged woman in work clothes. License and registration, Rodriguez demands without so much as a good morning or explanation for the stop. His tone is harsh, dismissive, the tone of someone who's already decided you're guilty of something. General Williams responds with the kind of calm professionalism that comes from years of military training. Good morning, officer. May I ask what the reason for the stop is? This simple, polite question, the kind any citizen has the right to ask, immediately sets Rodriguez on edge. In his mind, questioning his authority is the first sign of trouble. He doesn't see a citizen exercising her rights. He sees defiance. I'll ask the questions here, he snaps. License and registration now. General Williams complies, reaching slowly and deliberately for her documents. She knows that any sudden movement could be misinterpreted, could escalate this situation beyond her control. But even her careful movements are viewed with suspicion. What's in the car? Walsh shouts from the passenger side, his voice aggressive and accusatory. Nothing illegal, sir. General Williams responds calmly. Just some personal items from visiting my mother. Rodriguez studies her out-of-state license, his prejudices now fully activated. What's someone like you doing in Millbrook? He asks, the question dripping with implication. Someone like me? General Williams repeats, her voice still steady but now carrying a note of steel that Rodriguez mistakes for attitude. Don't play games with me, Rodriguez warns. We've had problems with people coming through here, looking for trouble. Drug dealers, gang members, people who don't belong here. The insult hangs in the air between them. General Williams feels the familiar burn of discrimination, the assumption that her presence in this community is automatically suspicious. She thinks about her mother, who endured far worse than this. She thinks about the soldiers under her command, who look up to her to handle difficult situations with grace and dignity. Officer, I'm just passing through on my way home, she says, her voice still controlled but now carrying the authority of someone accustomed to command. I've committed no crime, and I'd appreciate being treated with basic respect. But Rodriguez hears challenge in her tone. He hears defiance. He hears everything except what she's actually saying, that she's a human being who deserves to be treated with dignity. Step out of the car, he orders, his hand moving closer to his weapon. Now, what happens next will haunt Sergeant Rodriguez for the rest of his life. As General Williams steps out of her vehicle, her movements slow and deliberate to avoid any misunderstanding, Rodriguez's training and prejudices collide in the worst possible way. Turn around, hands behind your back, he commands, already reaching for his handcuffs. For what? General Williams asks, her voice now carrying the full authority of someone who's spent decades giving orders to people who were trained to follow them. What am I being arrested for? Resisting arrest, Rodriguez snarls, the circular logic of bad policing on full display. Failure to comply with a lawful order. But here's what Rodriguez doesn't understand. General Williams isn't resisting arrest because she's a criminal. She's questioning the arrest because she's a leader, someone who's spent her career ensuring that authority is exercised justly and legally. Her questions aren't defiance. They're the response of someone who understands the proper use of power. I am complying with all lawful orders, she says, her voice now carrying the unmistakable tone of command. "But I have the right to know what I'm being charged with." Walsh, feeding off his partner's energy, steps forward aggressively. "You people always think you know your rights," he sneers. "This is what happens when you don't show proper respect. You people." The words hang in the air like a loaded weapon. General Williams has heard these words before, directed at her soldiers, her colleagues, her community. She's heard them used as a weapon to diminish, to dehumanize. "Officer," she says, her voice now carrying warning, "you need to be very careful about how you proceed from here." But Rodriguez misreads her tone completely. To him, her authority sounds like attitude. Her dignity sounds like arrogance. Her professionalism sounds like disrespect. "That's it," he shouts, grabbing her arm with unnecessary force. "You're under arrest for disorderly conduct and resisting arrest." As the handcuffs click into place, General Williams makes one final attempt to prevent what she knows is about to become a catastrophe for everyone involved. "Officers, I'm going to tell you one more time, you need to stop this right now. You have no idea who you're dealing with, and this is going to end very badly for you if you continue." But Rodriguez is past the point of listening. He's committed to his course of action, convinced that this woman's calm authority is actually criminal arrogance that needs to be broken. "Yeah?" he laughs, pushing her toward the patrol car as curious onlookers begin to gather. "And what are you going to do about it? Call your lawyer? Call your mama? Lady, you picked the wrong town to run your mouth in." As General Williams is forced into the back of the patrol car, her dignity intact despite her degrading treatment, she looks Rodriguez directly in the eye and speaks with the kind of quiet authority that comes from years of commanding respect from some of the most elite soldiers in the world. "Officer Rodriguez," she says, reading his name tag, "I'm going to make one phone call. And when I do, your career in law enforcement will be over." Rodriguez slams the door, laughing with Walsh about the tough talk from another troublemaker. They have no idea that they've just arrested someone whose authority extends far beyond their small-town jurisdiction, someone who could end their careers with a single call to Washington, D.C. 20 minutes later, at the Millbrook police station, General Williams sits in the holding cell, still calm, still dignified, still every inch the leader she's always been. She's allowed her one phone call, and she knows exactly who to call. "Pentagon Operations Center, this is General Williams, service number 123-45-6789. I need to be connected to General Morrison immediately." The desk sergeant, who's been joking with Rodriguez and Walsh about their difficult arrest, suddenly stops laughing. "Pentagon? General?" He looks at the woman in the holding cell with new eyes, noticing for the first time the straight posture, the command presence, the unmistakable bearing of someone accustomed to authority. "Ma'am," he says carefully. "Did you say General?" "Brigadier General Patricia Williams, United States Army," she replies, her voice now carrying the full weight of her rank and authority. "And I need to speak to my commanding officer about a civil rights violation that just occurred in your jurisdiction." The color drains from the desk sergeant's face. Rodriguez and Walsh, still filling out their arrest paperwork, look up in confusion. They've never seen their colleague look so pale, so terrified. "What's wrong?" Rodriguez asks, still not understanding the magnitude of what's happening. "You just arrested a general," the desk sergeant whispers. "A United States Army general." The phone call to the Pentagon takes exactly 4 minutes. 4 minutes for General Williams to explain what happened. 4 minutes for her commanding officer to understand that one of his most respected generals has been subjected to racial profiling and illegal arrest. 4 minutes for the wheels of military justice to begin turning. When she hangs up, General Williams looks at Rodriguez and Walsh with the kind of calm that comes before a storm. "Gentlemen," she says, her voice now carrying the full authority of her rank, "you have approximately 15 minutes before your chief receives a call from the Pentagon. I suggest you use that time to think very carefully about what you want to say when he asks you to explain why you arrested a United States Army general for the crime of driving while black." Rodriguez stares at her, his mind trying to process what he's hearing. This can't be real. This woman, in her faded jeans and work boots, can't possibly be a military general. But the phone call was real. The confidence in her voice is real. The sudden terror in his colleague's eyes is very, very real. "You're lying," Walsh stammers, but his voice lacks conviction. "You're not a general. Generals don't drive old cars and wear old clothes." General Williams looks at him with something that might be pity. "Officer Walsh, that's exactly the kind of thinking that got you into this mess. You assumed that authority and respect had to look a certain way, come from a certain background, wear a certain uniform. You judged me by my appearance instead of my actions. And now you're going to learn why that's the most dangerous mistake a law enforcement officer can make." The phone call from the Pentagon comes exactly 14 minutes later. Chief of Police Robert Henderson has never received a call from such a high-ranking military official, and he's certainly never had to explain why his officers arrested a United States Army general. The conversation is brief and devastating. Within 30 minutes, General Williams is released with a formal apology. Within 2 hours, Rodriguez and Walsh are suspended pending investigation. Within a week, both officers are terminated, their law enforcement careers over. But the story doesn't end there. The arrest was recorded by bystanders, and the video goes viral within hours. General Williams, rather than seeking revenge, uses her newfound platform to educate. She appears on national television, speaking with the same calm authority she displayed during her arrest. "This incident," she says, "is about more than two officers making a mistake. It's about the assumptions we make about people based on their appearance, their background, their race. It's about the difference between authority and authoritarianism, between respect and fear." The Millbrook Police Department, facing national scrutiny, implements sweeping reforms. Mandatory bias training, community policing initiatives, and new protocols for traffic stops. Chief Henderson, to his credit, uses this incident as a catalyst for positive change rather than damage control. General Williams works with the department to develop these programs, turning a moment of injustice into an opportunity for growth and understanding. She speaks to police academies across the country, sharing her story and teaching future officers about the importance of treating every citizen with dignity and respect. Rodriguez and Walsh, their careers in law enforcement over, face a choice: learn from their mistakes or remain bitter about their consequences. Rodriguez, to his credit, reaches out to General Williams 6 months later. He apologizes sincerely and asks if there's anything he can do to make amends. She suggests he volunteer with community organizations, working to bridge the gap between law enforcement and the communities they serve. Walsh, unfortunately, chooses a different path, claiming he was the victim of political correctness and reverse discrimination. He serves as a reminder that not everyone learns from their mistakes, not everyone grows from their failures. As our story ends, General Williams continues to serve her country with distinction, her experience in Millbrook adding to her understanding of the challenges facing America. She carries herself with the same dignity she showed that day in the holding cell, the same quiet authority that comes from a lifetime of service and sacrifice. The lesson of her story is simple but profound: never judge someone by their appearance. Respect costs nothing but means everything. And in a world where authority can be abused and power can corrupt, the greatest strength often comes from those who have learned to command respect through service rather than demand it through force. General Williams proved that true authority doesn't need to announce itself with uniforms or badges or titles. It shows itself through character, through dignity, through the quiet confidence that comes from knowing who you are and what you stand for. In the end, 2 careers were destroyed by a single phone call. But those careers were destroyed by the choices those officers made, not by the call itself. They were destroyed by prejudice, by assumptions, by the dangerous belief that some people matter less than others. General Williams didn't destroy their careers. She simply revealed what was already there, the kind of thinking that has no place in law enforcement, in public service, or in a society that values justice and equality for all. And that, perhaps, is the most important lesson of all. Remember, what goes around comes around. Respect costs nothing but means everything. And never ever judge someone by their appearance. because you never know who you might be dealing with. If you are moved by this story that we should stop judging books by their covers, join the We Are Black family. Subscribe and become part of the conversation that's changing everything. Stories like this happen every day. Subscribe to We Are Black and stay informed about what's really happening in our communities.